Hello and welcome to yet another wonderful review from yours truly. I sat through this. It's Ghosted. It's on Apple Plus, and it has audio description. So that's good, right? It has audio description. Anyway, this stars Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, and is directed by Dexter Fletcher, who you might remember as being the guy that took the credit for directing Bohemian Rhapsody, because they didn't want to put Bryan Singer's name on there. I think this film answers a lot of questions about how much of Bohemian Rhapsody was actually directed by Dexter Fletcher. None of it, because this movie's fucking terrible. So there's no way that dude directed a Best Picture nominee. They just erased Bryan Singer's name and they were like, Dexter Fletcher, directed by Dunn. And he was like, alright. And the film's pretty good. I guess I'll tell people I directed it. Cool. Yeah. I did not like this. I don't think they have any chemistry. It's what happens when you take two people who are effortlessly just charismatic, and you just kind of plop them next to each other, and then you just hope chemistry happens. But then if it doesn't actually happen, see, they have to spend the whole film bickering. So the tension is supposed to be palpable. It's supposed to be this underlying, like, I hate you, but oh my god, if we could rip off our clothes right now, that'd be great. But I hate you. It's really kind of like that thing. And even in the scenes where they're supposedly, like, quote unquote flirting, it's really not great. Chris Evans is actually quite terrible in this. I have to be totally honest. It's mostly on him. I hated his character. I hated him. I hated the fact that they put him in this movie. I was like, I don't understand, because he plays the normal guy in this. This film is about a guy who works at, like, a farmer's market, who one day he's like, oh, all my exes suck. I wish I could meet the woman of a lifetime. And then in strolls in Ana de Armas, looking all blonde and sexy. And he's like, oh, you. And then they argue over the fact that she wants to buy a plant, and how that plant, how infrequently she plans on watering that plant. And he's like, I can't sell this plant to you. It's a living thing. You're just going to kill it. And so, like, they fight over the plant. And that whole scene supposedly is sexual tension, because another character comes up and is like, I thought for sure you two were going to get each other's numbers. And I was like, what about that scene made you think that those two were going to get each other's numbers? Like, they do actually genuinely seem to dislike each other. The problem is that they never seem to actually like each other. So the other half of the film, the part where it's supposed to be a romantic comedy, never works for me, because I actually bought into the fact that Ana de Armas and Chris Evans did not like each other. I was like, yeah, that's believable. But every time they would, like, try to like each other, it seemed really forced. Like, he has to, like, then run up to the car and, like, he's like, this all happens at, like, the very beginning of the film. He's like, hey, do you want to maybe go out sometime? And I was like, what the fuck is happening? You guys just argued over a plant. You just called her a plant murderer. What the fuck is happening in this movie? Hey, I know you kill plants, and I have a moral obligation to stop you from doing that, but I was really hoping we could go out sometime. Oh, God. Then she turns out to be a spy, and she's off doing her own thing, and lo and behold, this dude You know, he can't get a hold of her because she's busy, because she has a life and he doesn't. He works at a fucking farmer's market. And so he's like flying across. He's like jumping the pond to go to try to track her down or something and surprise her. I'm like, dude, why did we write Chris Evans in this movie? Why is Chris Evans in this role? This is the least Chris Evans role I've ever. This should not be Chris Evans. This should be like Ana de Armas trying to date Zach Galifianakis. Is what this should be. This should be somebody like that. Like that film would have worked. This film does not. This film rarely requires Chris Evans to be an action star. It requires him to be just charismatic. And I hate to tell you that, but there's a lot of people who don't look like action stars that are also charismatic and probably would have paired really well with Ana de Armas. Jason Bateman could have been really great in this. There's just a bunch of people that could have actually done and really handled the humor of the situation. See, Chris Evans is not a naturally comedic actor. I like Chris Evans. I think he's good in certain things. This is not one of them. The character doesn't feel like it was written for Chris Evans. The character doesn't feel like Chris Evans. Chris Evans doesn't feel like he knows what the character is. And it just all kind of gets lost. And it's in a lot of poor direction from Dexter Fletcher. Of course, there's some plot about how she has to get, there's this thing and like it could end the world, and of course it's the same thing. It's a fucking 355. It's the same. There's some serum or something out there that is like, oh god, it's just it's some plot device that we have to find and stop from getting in the wrong hands. And that's where this a cast that is way better than anybody ever deserved all falls into place. Adrian Brody plays the bad guy. Honestly, I couldn't pick up on it being Adrian Brody, so I think that's a solid performance from him. He probably was doing a pretty good job there as the bad guy. I didn't feel like, I wasn't immediately like, oh my god, that's so totally Adrian Brody. He was trying to stretch himself, obviously, a little bit as an actor and be a menacing villain. He's like, well, this is the closest I'm ever going to get to a Bond film, so I might as well eat it up. Probably the strongest thing, and I won't spoil this part because if you IMDb the film before you watch it, you'll spoil it. You will spoil this for yourself. There are a lot of cameos in this. There are a lot of cameos, and you may want to look afterward as to who they were. If you look ahead of time, you'll know how many cameos there are, and you'll be like, oh my god, so these people are all going to be in this film? And you'll be like, yeah. So this film does a really cool thing with bounty hunters. Multiple times in the film, somebody places a bounty on somebody's head, and it causes these bounty hunters to keep trying to fight over getting a bounty. And every time a bounty hunter pops up for a few minutes, it's somebody who's at least as famous as Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. So, and I would say at least two of them are clearly favors that Chris Evans called in. They're clearly, Chris Evans picked up the phone and was like, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to do this film for me. They're like, gotcha, bro. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's why two people are in this film. It's a bit much. I was like, oh, that's cool, but also like, I know why they're there. And that was creative. I like that. I did. That was this. If I had to go, like, is this film totally terrible? No, it's not. It's not 100% hot garbage. There's some really funny stuff that they do with the bounty hunters in this that is quite hilarious. And these little cameos, they're a little bit more than cameos. Like, they have a couple of lines, and they're all entertaining. And these little actors that pop up for like a few minutes are all really fun. I didn't hate any of them. They were the best part of the movie. There's a sequence kind of in the, I don't want to say it's right at the halfway mark because it's not. It's before the halfway mark. It just worked perfectly for me. I was like, yes, I love this. This is amazing. Um, Anna is actually, I don't really have much of a problem with Anna in this, except for the fact that her character is can't it has to back off because she's in a rom-com. So instead of just letting Anna do Anna and be a badass and be like, I mean, this girl was in a Bond film, you know? She can handle herself. She'll be fine. Um, she has to back her. She has to back off all the time and play the cutesy, charismatic spy that is, you know, kind of half flirting with Chris Evans. I didn't like this movie. I didn't like this movie. I don't know how else to say that. It's not a great film. It has a very talented cast, but for all people out there who are wondering, after Bohemian Rhapsody, which didn't even get that great of reviews to begin with, how great of a director Dexter Fletcher is, I'm gonna go with not. I'm gonna go with there were some other factors in why Bohemian Rhapsody was successful. Sort of like watching Joseph Kosinski direct Top Gun Maverick and then watching him direct Spiderhead and being like, oh, okay, so you're not one of the next prolific ones. Like, you can tell when somebody's got something going on. Like Ari Aster right now with, even though I haven't seen it, I know that what he's doing with Beau is Afraid is totally on brand for him. And his little clique of people are finding ways to love that film because he's doing what is expected of him. Well, Dexter Fletcher is trying to do this chameleon thing where he can direct films of any genre. Yeah, I'll do that, and give me this one, give me that one, I don't care, I'll do whatever. It just means he doesn't have any style. There's no style to this, there's no substance. This feels like something that we are releasing onto streaming nowadays and just being like, yeah, is this getting a theatrical release? No. No, we're just gonna put this on Apple Plus. Yeah, it's I'm sorry, I couldn't recommend it. The title is dumb too, by the way. I just have to tell you because, I mean, I guess she kind of ghosted him, but at the same time, she does openly admit in the film and in the trailer that she was going to call him back. She just is a spy, so I think it's supposed to feel like Chris Evans was ghosted simply because she doesn't respond to him immediately because he's such a needy fucker that saves plants at farmers markets. So he has no like real world idea of what's going on. But anyway, at least the film has good audio description. I did enjoy the audio description. I think the film does a pretty good job. The film has strengths. There's one of my actually another. There are some decent sequences here. I'm not totally tanking this movie. There's a sequence where Chris Evans is captured and mistaken for a spy, and they're talking about testing him with these various objects for pain, and that's well described. And Ana de Armas has a really funny moment sort of in that sequence that I also don't want to spoil, but the descriptions in that sequence were all really fine. I liked just there's a lot of things. There's like they're waiting for a key to unlock, right? And it's what the visual audience is waiting for is for 4 green lights to happen. well, the narrator makes sure that we watch and we know that when one green light comes on, and then the second green light, and then the third green light, and then the fourth green light. So we get the same sort of like anticipation of is this gonna happen? Is this real? You know, that everybody else gets. They don't go into just straight up revealing who the cameos are, which is probably, and it's tough because the credits aren't described. So the best way I can say is to go to IMDb. If you don't know what that is, Internet Movie Database. It's been around since the 90s. So it's probably older than people watching my video, but just a fact. Yeah, and look up Ghosted there, and you'll figure out who the cameos are. You'll be like, oh, that's who played that. Oh, that's who played that. Oh, okay. If you don't recognize their voice, which is fair, because they don't have a ton of dialogue, so you have to be able to pick up on voice recognition for a couple of actors pretty quickly. One of them is just, oh my god, obvious, and then the rest of them are, I needed, but then after I read that, I was like, oh, of course that's who that was. Jesus. Yeah, it's, the audio description here is fine. It really, I don't have too much of a problem with it. It's action oriented. It's centered on action, so it has to focus on action. It has to focus a lot on that, which is weird because it is also a rom-com. So it feels like you want to hear things about, like Chris Evans and his, like, I don't know, weird manly sexiness and Ana de Armas and her, like, it feels like you want that sort of like 50 Shades of Grey audio description that like that focuses on how passionate these two are for each other, but they're really not. That's the thing about the film, is that they're really not that passionate for each other. It's supposed to be this thing, sort of like a Romancing the Stone, where they fucking hate each other for the whole movie. And then at the end, they're like, oh my god, let's get married and have kids. Like, it's just, so yeah, it's really kind of like an action romantic comedy. I don't know. I didn't like it, so don't worry about it. If you want to watch it, fine. If you're like a completionist and you've seen everything Chris or Anna has done, and you're like, I have to see this, that's okay. I have seen worse things, and I've seen worse things this year. But this is definitely Apple Plus does not care about this film, and they're just kind of rolling it out, and they're like, hey, here's Ghosted. So I'm gonna give Ghosted a C-. That's where I'm at with Ghosted. Some interesting stuff done with cameos. Maybe one or two other funny things actually happening in the film. I actually enjoyed the plant sequence until he then later on, then immediately after is like, by the way, you want to hook up? I'm like, fuck. Damn it. So, yeah, it can be such a better film. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe so we can get jiggy with it. And I promise not to ghost you. I have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to Twitter or Instagram and follow me there, MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the Audio Description Project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know who, where you can watch things, what films are out there for you to watch that are not ghosted. And the ADNA.org has a lot of information about narrators. So that's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys, and then see you on the other side. Until then.